Hello, everybody. I just wanted to be showing you I'm going to go through a few of my replays, and I'm just going to show you some of the things that I do every single game, see if that might help you guys. I am right now currently ranked high platinum, so I'm definitely platinum. And, yeah. So, first thing you can see is big map, so I'm planning on expanding first, so I set down the pylon out there. Just building constant stream of workers, of course, and then I see the Overlord coming to my base, so I know where his base is. Okay. And starting my expand, and I'm just going to do slightly delayed because I realized he's pretty close to me, scouting me early, so that's why I threw down that second pylon so I could scout his base, make sure I know what he's doing. Looks like he's going for third expansion. I saw his worker go there. Okay, yeah. Notice all my Nexi are hotkeyed. That's very important to be able to use those hotkeys for that. So basically I'm playing against Zerg player, and I said, yeah, basically I got my fast expansion, so now I either want to kind of play standard, kind of sit back on my two bases, slowly work my way to a third base, get up a big death ball, or I want to go for some sort of gateway all-in before he can really do too much. Yeah, so right now I decided, I don't really know what I'm doing too well, but building a lot of workers still. Yeah. That's really the big thing, is building a lot of workers. And of course, chrono boosting, there we go, a bunch of gateways being put on, but chrono boosting on +1 because it's super useful against Zerg. +1 armor goes first against Terran usually, +1 attack usually goes against Zerg, and then you don't use plus anything like PvP. So I'm setting up a couple pylons now. I decided I'm going to be aggressive. I don't actually plan on killing him here, I just want to be aggressive, see what damage I can do. But interestingly enough, he is going for an army composition that works in my favor. As you can see, there's a hotkey for warp gates technology, but always hotkey all of your production facilities. I noticed how I didn't really look at my army for quite a while there. You know, on the mini-map I can see what's happening. I know he didn't have much army. I was pretty sure he wouldn't be able to reinforce too soon. I'm not too worried. And you also need to worry about, you know, just taking care of everything at the base. And yeah, at that point I didn't know exactly what was going on because I couldn't see on the mini-map because a lot of his units were up the ramp in the fog of war. So I said, okay, I'm just going to back off there and not do anything. Notice, if you look down below at the bottom part of the screen here, you can see everything that comes up when I'm pressing my hotkeys to switch between the army and the production facilities to warp in. So there you guys go. That game was just, you know, always the basic scout at the very beginning of the game. You want to know what's going to go on at the very beginning, and then sort of, you know, have an idea of what kind of, do you want to expand first, do you want to be aggressive first? And then from there, just, yeah. I used some hotkeys. I didn't use a lot of hotkeys in this game. You know, obviously the spell casting is hotkeys and the warp gates and the Nexi, so very important, but not a lot. And of course, sometimes remember to use my chrono boost, sometimes not later in the game, but this one you don't see a lot because it was quite a short game, quite an easy game. I would say more so that he must have made some mistakes that cost him that game in a lot of ways. So anyways, let's jump into another replay. Hopefully this is not the same. Okay, let's jump into another game. This is PvP. I knew that going into the game. So basically what I'm going to do is, you don't have many options. You can either 4-gate straight up, you can 3-gate Robo, or 3-gate Stargate. And that's about all you can do in PvP. Really, you have no other openings. If you fast expand, you are almost guaranteed to die unless they're really dumb and decide not to kill you, or they also fast expand as well. I see his probe in my base. I see that it's not going into the fog of war to put down a pylon. That's important. Keep an eye on it. I know it's probably putting down a pylon somewhere else, but I'm going to double check the fog of war anyways. Now I'm going to check my base, because sometimes they will put a pylon that forward aggressive. Nope. Good for me. He has not, so I'm just sending my probe. I'm sending something to rally in front to make sure nothing comes into my base to set up a pylon. Well, I look around for that proxy pylon because most players will aggressively 4-gate you. That's most common, you know. So, oh, see it come in, killed it. Okay, no, still no pylon. I still should be good, but just searching around, of course, and there's absolutely nothing, which leads me to believe that he is not going to 4-gate me. I poke up here, and I see an expansion, and I say, oh, goody, time for you to die. I'm just going to warp in a ton of units, and you are dead. So, get up the big army, know that he can't do anything, run up the ramp before those force fields, and ooh, he totally forgot to force field. Sucks to be him, really, really sucks, and he is dead because, well, yeah. So, this game, you know, a lot of game sense stuff. Basic mechanics, I really didn't have to micro too much, so can't say much on that. Once again, hotkeys, pretty basic. between this one and the previous game, as in not a ton of hotkeys being used because the game didn't last long enough. So, I'm sure you want to watch my Squadron Tower Defense replays, but we were totally bad-mannered. Yes, of course it is. Okay, so I'm just sour about life, sour about everything. What's going to happen here is it's a 2-player map, but usually against Terran you fast expand, because usually they're fast expanding. But, so you set the pylon and you go for the scout right away. You check for gas against Terran. If you don't see gas, 90% chance you're just going to early expand. Notice how I threw down a pylon there? That pylon serves no purpose other than to distract his workers. If, let's go back a couple talks. Look at how many workers he pulled off the line to kill that pylon. Look at the income. Oh my god. So that definitely paid for itself. So yeah, that's the only reason why I did that. It's pretty funny. So yeah, doing my fast expand, and of course I got some extra minerals, but I don't have my first gateway done to be able to do my cyber core yet, so I threw down a second gateway. This game I decided I was going to try something really, really weird. I thought that I'd kind of like, I didn't have a game plan, which is not really good. So usually what you want to do against Terran, you get that, some sentries early on, you get some zealots, and then you can either go, I like going for very fast charge a lot. I do like that. That's definitely a pretty good option. And most of the time I go into Zealot Archon, and then later get Colossi after Zealot Archon, you know, has done its damage. The other thing too is you can always look at Immortals early game as well, especially when you're transitioning into Zealot Archon. It's good to have a couple Immortals early if they're going with some Marauders. I'm not doing great scouting, but here I say, okay, yeah, let's go for a little poke, you know. I saw that he was throwing down that bunker earlier, and now I'm just going to have my worker go up the front ramp there, just see what's going on. And okay, his whole army's up there. I saw, it didn't look huge, and it should be out of position, and of course it is. It was going across the map, I assume, to kill me. So I gotta be careful though not to get caught by the flanking army, and some okay force fields could have been better. Definitely, you know, if we look at the units lost tab, that just shows the story. Like, really could have been a lot better. So now I'm getting like this weird thing out. Okay, now let's pause for a little bit. I got some DTs out. I'm not doing a good job of spreading them out. I was thinking about getting Archons, but I also thought, you know what, let's just try him out as DT, see if he doesn't notice. There might be a chance. I'm getting my ground weapons level 1 now that I already have armor, getting an Immortal, getting 2 bases. And the other thing is, that attack, I did a fair amount of damage. Like, I killed off a few workers, definitely. I killed off most of his army, definitely not all of it. If we look at the army tab now, he still has a fair bit, but it's really, really not, you know, a horrible amount of army. You know, at least that's what I'm guessing in my head. I'm saying, okay, shouldn't have a huge army, so I'm going to double expand. Hopefully I can hold this, as that is a lot of resources. I just put 1,200 resources into buildings, minerals right now. But I'm kind of thinking he probably won't do a big counter push right now, because I felt like I killed enough army. I've got some DTs here for defense, and I've got a few units. I've got, you know, some stuff coming out, blah, 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 and so that should be all good and dandy. 2 robo bays, because I am going to switch into Colossi at some point. I decided to skip the Archons in this build. As I said, this was just no game plan, just really random weird build. What would actually be good right now is just build a couple Archon or DTs on that pylon on the right side. Notice, okay, that's another thing I want to point out. Observers. Well, in this case, I actually had a worker down there instead of an observer that was able to catch. On this map, what I love to do is I love to put a pylon here and a pylon here. And that will let you see most of the drops incoming. Same thing, pylon here, let you see most drops incoming. And it's very important, especially against Terran, to be able to see when those drops are incoming, see them in advance on the mini-map. Let's just take a look again. What do I have for hotkeys? Now, my hotkeys, I've done this interesting grid-style layout. If you notice this, it's kind of grid, it's grid here, and then all of these are grid. But I made some customizations of my own. If you look at this, my worker is actually, well, it doesn't show you right now, but it's E key. I use the E key to warp in all workers between all races. I've set it that way on purpose. The majority of stuff is grid though, but look at this Colossi I've actually put down as A. You know, I put it so I go W, I start W, E, R, and then A for Colossi. And that way I can still use my normal A as attack. I can have my fingers laid out like as if I was touch typing. I'll get into all of my stuff later, but just, you know, that's the general idea there. And then for hotkeys, what I like to do is, one is for my army, 2 is like if I have blink stalkers, if I have flying units, or even if I want to micro colossi or immortals. And then 3 is for Templars. Basically, that's about it. That's really all it's for, is Templars. So it's special units. That's why 4 is my nexus. 5 is my main secondary production facility. As Protoss, I have the luxury of warp gates being their own hotkey, which I have assigned to Zed. So this is my second main production facility, because this is one I'm going to be building out of the most after the warp gates. And then if I had Starport, well, if I was using Starport more than Robo, it would be 5, and then Robo would be 6. Also, I don't do this often anymore, but in the past I used to actually hotkey to 9 or some number over here that doesn't matter, your upgrades, your forges. Like, it really doesn't hurt to do that, because one point in the game, you know what, you might just want to use it and it's kind of worth it, but I totally forget. Definitely one thing I do forget here, though, is I forget the worker transfer. Well, like, I've got this worker transfer, but absolutely nothing up here. I'm really bad about actually using these 2 bases when I do double expand. Notice I do have an observer here, though, to be able to observe for any army that's coming from here to potentially kill this base, because he probably doesn't know about it yet, but you know what? You never want to take that chance. So anyways, right now I'm kind of thinking, I don't know what to do in the game. I see his army coming up there, so I try and defend, but oh my god, this pissed me off so much. I'm just going to have to show it to you guys anyways, because, you know what? Well, lucky him and his factory. I totally don't pay attention because I have everything on attack move, and I was trying to say this. Really, what I should have done is just sacrifice his nexus. It was definitely some bad decision planning. You know, I see his army. It's definitely big. I should have backed off. He's scanning for my DTs, which means I should have pulled this one back, which I didn't. My micro is something that I definitely need work on. You know, and I'm not microing the immortals at all. This whole army's getting stuck there. Horrible. Everything about that was so bad. I should have just sacrificed this base, let my guys hide back here, assume that he doesn't know about this base. If we look at his vision for a second, yeah, he doesn't know. And yeah, so now I'm basically in a losing point in the game. As you can see, not having converted all my warp gates, but trying to use chrono boost as much as I can. I have been throughout the majority of the game. Try and remember, warp your units back somewhere safe, and then try and build up enough to engage that army, because right now 3 zealots will do absolutely nothing against this army. Yeah, see, they went to attack there, so I'm pulling them back. I'm putting the 1 DT in, but forget to hotkey him, don't have an attack, that kind of stuff. So yeah, a lot of things here go real bad, and basically at this point I'm thinking, okay, let him take this, try and get my probes somewhere safe, hold the high ground, warp in units. I need a sentry real soon, so there you see, trying to hide those units, letting him take that base, and just trying to get some units up on the high ground soon. I should be chrono boosting, you know, these warp gates to build sooner, but I really don't have too much. And right now, sadly, I can't see exactly where his army is. I don't know exactly when I'll be allowed to move these workers, because I want to transfer them up to that north base. I see some army poking up there, and no, he spots them. And this is where the bad manner starts, because, well, you know, that just pissed me off. So I just run him this way, because I don't want to alert him that I've got a base here, so I don't send him that way. And anyways, I just get completely screwed. My Colossi finally out, but range upgrade has not been started, which is really bad. So, you know, but getting those sentries finally, and just trying to remember to build some workers up at this base. And yeah, I get a few kills here, which is definitely good, definitely going to be worth it. Going to need a couple more of these. Thankfully, he doesn't have the rest of his army on the low ground supporting that. And really, the other thing I should consider... Oh no, that's not cool. The other thing I should have considered... No, that's so bad! Stupid unit. Anyways, I'm like, there's no point pulling back right now because, well, I'm just gonna lose my whole army if I do. Thankfully, I do have charge at least, so he can't kite me all day. But, try and get the sentry up there so I can do some... whatever. But yeah, it's really a lost game. So I made a lot of micro mistakes. I definitely made some mistakes in determining, you know, which base to try and save that base, not seeing my units go, and definitely not doing any macro up at this base. That would have helped me. And I kind of guessed that he wasn't doing much macro because he thought he had me on the ropes. Kind of wrong. He's being pretty good. He's got this base up and running. So, you know, either way, it was a lost game, and yep, that was a depressing loss. You know, I was definitely heading through that game away, but then again, I was trying to do some build that I've never done, you know, making something, and that's bad. When you get to these higher levels, you know, it's bad to just, well, mid to higher levels, it's bad to just try and make up things unless you have a really good idea what you're doing, and that's not me. So anyways, here's another PvP game, and I just want to show you this one again because, Well, not much. Like, two-player map, you have to be careful of two-gate proxies. So you get that scout to their base right away, and that will give you enough time to cancel gas, throw up a second gateway in your own base, and just go eye for eye against their two-gate proxy. So if you don't see any gateways building in the base, you know they're proxying you. So I'm not worried. I'm getting like... So what I'm doing here is, I'm actually doing the Stargate play I told you about, but you still want to chrono boost out your warp gate as soon as possible. You still want to try and look for that pylon, but you don't want to wait too long. My zealot's actually been out there for too long, because they should have a stalker and a zealot at my base now, because I delayed my zealot and I didn't build a stalker. But sentry, I went for the sentry since I'm getting the phoenixes, and yeah, so definitely though, gonna hold that ramp. That's the main important thing. Warp and turn my gateways. I'm trying not to spend too much gas right now, just because I need the gas for the phoenixes. But I should be able to. I'm moving the phoenixes a little closer to his base because I assume he's going to attack me. And there we go. I barely catch that on the mini map in time to force field. He actually got his stalkers pretty far up the ramp, and of course I will need a second sentry to be able to have the energy to continuously force field that ramp, so that's good. And now I can take control of these units and just watch the mini map for those stalkers trying to push up my ramp. I didn't really notice how few stalkers there were to tip off the fact, but once I see this expansion here, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm pretty safe. So now I'm just going to get everything, and I'm going to attack him, because as I said, you never want to fast expand in PvP. So I'm just like, okay, I'll attack him. And once again, as you can notice, I actually didn't hotkey my Stargate this game, just because the game's so short. But, definitely using a fair bit of micro here. Notice how I can just pick up both the stalkers, so that way I don't take any damage. And I managed to kill off the one, still better than nothing, but that was a ton of energy used. And right now, yeah, I'm just working on warping in units and killing them. I thought I had rallied a worker to follow my army so I could build a forward pylon. Sadly, I did not, but that's alright. And now I just come in for the main attack, thinking his army is distracted by my phoenixes having been in his back base, which is exactly what happened, as you can see all the stalkers. So I pull my zealots back from the gas, and I say, okay, well, I'll go in and kill and distract your army once again while I kill some workers. And yeah, so now I'm just going to retreat everything together because I don't have that forward pylon to warp in, and I'm just going to expand myself because I actually don't expect to end the game here because I forgot that forward pylon. But I say, whoa, wait a minute, I can just pick up those immortals, and that's basically game. And of course he left the game and quit, so it was game because I'm just able to pick up enough stuff that he can't, that I can kill the units on the ground, mainly his zealots and a couple stalkers, while the other ones are floating in the air, and then I still have enough army left at the end to kill everything. Woohoo! So that was that game. Definitely used a little bit of micro. You can see some decision making again. So there's definitely, I use hotkeys in all of my games, obviously. I use the majority of hotkeys now that I've got a custom setup that I'm getting really good with and comfortable with. Definitely always, workers, number of workers I'm building, I'm not focusing on that, but that's important, obviously. But production capabilities, very important that you're hotkeying and using your production capabilities without having to manually go back and click on the buildings. Upgrading, you can kind of get away with it because you don't, I might have been slow putting them out there, that's for sure, and forgot to do a few things, but that's kind of generally what's going on there. Also, we've got, a lot of good macro happening, but production, a lot of people, they might be able to get good macro with their workers and everything, but they don't necessarily get good macro in terms of having the production facilities. So if you look at everything this player has, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 barracks, but he only did the one base, of course. Oh, there we go, he has the second base finally, but not a ton of production facilities, so definitely can't rebuild anything after this exchange goes down. And I can rebuild as well as, both of us actually have a bank. Mine's obviously larger, but yeah. Anyways, guys, now I'm going to go into the hotkeys for you. I'm going to show you my custom. I just created I started with like a standard, and then I customized it, manually customized it. So basically, my probe though is okay. Probe. It's grid for all of these advanced structures, all of these basic structures, but I start my grid on the W key. I like to have my hand on the keyboard like as if I'm typing normally, so that my index finger on my left hand is on the F key. So, and I don't like using my pinky key for a lot of stuff, so that's why I start everything on W instead of, on Q, like they would suggest. Ugh. Anyways, makes it a lot easier to press all the keys for me anyways, that's what I find. But as you can see up here, now because it's not a true grid, I've had to do some funny things with these. These two are grid, and you know, this is grid, kind of, and this one's kind of grid, and this one's kind of grid. Attack I've left as A, and then Q I've for stop. Like it was one of those things, you know, it just had to happen. I couldn't make it a grid, just because it conflicts with other things. Really messy. Anyways, Zealot, you can see, you know, a lot of these similar. This research charge command, well, that's from the Twilight Council. That's basically on grid. The sentry abilities, all of the abilities of like my spellcasters, I put them in the middle row. So starting with SDF rather than putting them on the bottom with XCV. As you can see, it should be XCV, but SDF, that makes it a lot easier to be able to use their abilities, is the idea. And then the ones in the corners, well, you know, just figured something out there. So, yeah, SD, as you can see, S. So, you know, it just has a general feel to it. It's basically grid, but I made some modifications. You know, I've shifted my grid over because I don't like starting the grid on A. Because if you choose normal grid, everything C, so annoying, so annoying. So, anyways, yeah. So that's basically how that goes. You know, if we look at the upgrades here, also on grid, but in this case they are up on the top. They're up on the top because some of the buildings do have stuff all the way through. I couldn't put them in the middle because it's inconsistent. So they're all on the top, and production facilities, of course, are all as close to grid as I can. But see this Colossi? Well, I could have put it on T, but I just thought putting on S down as if it was down here would be much easier than reaching up for the T. So I did that. And yeah, that's about that. Those are my hotkeys. If I think I explained it. I'm not sure because I am going to cut out two of the videos to make this shorter. But the other hotkeys that I like to use are 1 for my main army, 2 for units that I kind of want to micro, such as Blink Stalkers or flying units, 3 for my main spellcasters, basically my Templars, 4 for my Nexuses, 5 for my secondary production facility, so whatever I use the most after gateways, and then 6 for the production facility after that, and then you can always use something like 8 or 9 for your upgrade facilities such as forges or engineering bays, and I would suggest that even though I've gotten out of the practice of doing that. So hopefully hopefully that gives you guys an idea of, you know, what skills you kind of need to be in platinum. Obviously you need a bit of micro skills. I don't have great micro skills though, so it's not completely micro. You know, a little bit of multitasking is required, but you know, just a lot of it comes down to those game decisions, those general game decisions. You know, what build order did you want to use? What did your initial scout tell you? Did you see gas against Terran? That means that he's probably going to attack you really early on, and you don't want to fast expand. You know, what's the Zerg player doing? You know, all those game decisions, you can kind of get a feel for those by watching pro replays, seeing good commentators suggesting, you know, this and that. So definitely it comes down a lot to that game sense. It comes down a bit to your micro, you know, a lot to your choices for unit composition and doing your upgrades, and then of course macro, macro, macro. Alternatively, you can go a different route and you can easily get into diamond by focusing heavily on your micro and doing cheese one base builds. You know, there's a lot of people who get into diamond and potentially even masters the odd time just by cheesing the majority of their games. And you can definitely do that if you want to, but the problem with that method is you definitely do hit a roadblock. Sure, your games are nice and short, but you know, it's hard to learn to play longer games, and once you start playing against players who are good at scouting against your cheese and fending against it, suddenly you'll stop being able to win games because as soon as it goes into a longer game, you're just screwed. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed, hopefully you learned something, hopefully this wasn't too long, and keep playing.